Imagine you have committed a crime in ancient Rome. You've been caught. What happens next? You will not be placed in a cell. You will not be given a sentence. You will not be sent to a rehabilitation program. You will either be executed in the public square, sold into slavery, or thrown into the arena with wild animals. Prison, as we understand it, simply did not exist. Prison is a very young invention. It is only about 200 years old, and when it appeared, people considered it the height of humanity and progress. But the road to that progress passed through so much cruelty, absurdity, and strange experimentation that the history of prison turns out to be one of the darkest and present. The pillory, one of the most common instruments of punishment, worked purely on psychology. A criminal was tied to a post in the marketplace for hours or days. Passers-by could shout at them, throw rotten vegetables, spit. Public humiliation was considered worse than physical pain. For a person of the Middle Ages, losing one's honor in front of the entire community meant social death. Torture was legalized and systematized. Official manuals existed describing which instruments to apply depending on the severity of the crime. A confession obtained under torture was considered perfectly valid evidence in court. The church added its own dimension, the Inquisition. Here the concern was not with theft or murder, but with sins and heresy. Someone accused of witchcraft or apostasy could spend years in church dungeons awaiting trial. Before modern prisons appeared, Europe spent several centuries practicing one of the most absurd inventions in the history of law, the debtor's prison. If you could not repay a debt, you were thrown in prison. The logic was simple to the point of madness. Sit there until you pay. But how do you pay while sitting in prison with no ability to work? You don't. Many people spent years in debtors' prisons, not for any crime, but simply for being poor. In Victorian England, debtors' prisons were a fact of everyday life. One of them, the Marshalsea Prison in London, received a famous inmate when John Dickens, father of the future novelist Charles Dickens, was imprisoned there. Charles was 12 years old. The boy was forced to leave school and go to work in a bootblacking factory. The experience scarred Dickens for life and directly shaped his writing. Little Dorrit, David Copperfield, Oliver Twist. One debtor's prison gave birth to an entire literary universe. Debtors' prisons existed across Europe until the mid-19th century. By the end of the 18th century, European thinkers had begun loudly asking an uncomfortable question. What if punishment should not simply inflict pain, but actually reform? Italian jurist Cesare Beccaria, writing in 1764, published a book called On Crimes and Punishments, and turned everything upside down. He argued that the severity of punishment does not deter crime. What deters crime is its certainty. Why maim and execute if you can isolate and rehabilitate? Beccaria's ideas inspired the Quakers of Pennsylvania. In 1829, the Eastern State Penitentiary opened in Philadelphia. It was intended to be a revolution in the treatment of criminals. Each prisoner received a separate cell. Complete silence. No communication with other inmates whatsoever. No conversations with guards. The only book in the cell was the Bible. The idea was this: in absolute solitude, a person would inevitably turn to God, recognize their sins, and emerge reformed. In practice, things went differently. Prisoners went mad. Mass hallucinations, psychosis, complete loss of grip on reality. The 20th century brought new ideas about prisons, and new failures. Alcatraz, the most famous prison in history, opened in 1934 on an island in San Francisco Bay. The most dangerous and unmanageable prisoners were sent there. Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, Mickey Cohen. Over 29 years of operation, 36 escape attempts were made from Alcatraz. Officially, not one succeeded. But Alcatraz was not closed because of escape attempts. The cost of housing a single prisoner there was 3 times higher than at any other federal facility. Everything had to be shipped to the island: water, food, building materials. In 1963, the prison was closed simply because it was too expensive. Today, more than 11 million people are behind bars worldwide. The United States holds the world record for its prison population, more than 2 million people, and yet, research consistently shows that countries with the harshest prison systems do not have the lowest crime rates. The question of whether prison actually works as intended remains wide open. Prison has traveled from a stone pit in Rome to a multi-billion-dollar industry. Over 5,000 years, humanity has tried everything: executions, torture, public humiliation, hard labor, solitary confinement, rehabilitation. Every era was certain it had found the right answer to the question: how do you make people stop breaking the law? And every era was wrong in its own way. The modern prison appeared as a humane alternative to execution and torture. But solitary confinement turned out to be a different kind of torture. Mass incarceration does not reduce crime. Debtors' prisons punished poverty rather than wrongdoing. The history of prison is the history of humanity trying again and again to answer the same question: how do we respond to harm? And we still don't have a clear answer.